A good morning and happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into the Mining Stock Daily long form episode, recording from Europe. And a lot of this week's episodes came from my time at the Nordic Funds and Mines conference in Stockholm. And we got a long form episode here. I was able to connect and have a conversation with Nisse Sandberg. He is the portfolio manager for the Jordan Fund, and this fund has been around for many decades. They've invested in a number of wonderful projects throughout their time, and this fund goes all the way back to the 1960s and also has relationships with Adolf Lundin. So it's an incredible story that Nisse kind of fills in for us, and there's an incredible relationship here between resource investing and the sport of ping pong. I'm going to let you guys listen in on that as well. It's very fascinating. So thank you, Nisse, for sharing some of your insight and experience throughout your career with us on Mining Stock Daily. Many thanks to Fireweed Metals, Arizona Sonoran Copper, and Visa Silver for their continued support of the podcast. We couldn't do it without you. And as always, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like, subscribe, and share on either the podcast network of your choice or on the YouTube channel. All right, we're off to LME week next week. More content coming down the way, but enjoy this great conversation this weekend with my guest, Nisse Sandberg. Thank you, everybody. All right, everybody, welcome into the Mining Stock Daily podcast, and this is going to be a special interview coming from the Nordic Funds and Mining conference in Stockholm this year, and we'll be covering this for the next 24 hours. But I got a special guest, somebody that I met on the site visit to the Viken deposit with District Metals, and somebody who's no stranger to investment in resources. He is, I would say, a strong supporter of resource development in the country of Sweden, and his network and Rolodex of contacts runs very deep, and I think will be a lot of familiar names in this conversation. From the Jordan Fund, I'm happy to welcome in the portfolio manager and probably the foundation of the fund, Mr. Nisse Sandberg. Nisse, thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, very nice being here.
Yes, nice having you. I appreciate your time and the couple conversations you and I have had in the last couple days. Let's maybe start with you, before we get into the Jordan Fund, start with you and kind of your career and where you began with commodities and energy and investment in these capital markets.
On a more serious basis, it was about 1985 when we had a big potential gas project in Sweden, drilling for gas in Dalarna, where our government urged a group of local politicians to start to find out if we have a great gas basin there. But after some drilling and research, it came out that this had been in the history, but it wasn't there any longer. And so that was the whole thing started. And at the same time, I came to a meeting with Adolf Lundin in the Lundin group, and we talked and came together, and I had set up my oil company in Sweden called Hydrocarbon International at the time, and he had the IPC from Canada, and we joined forces. So he came to my board of directors, and I went to his board of directors, and finally in '93 we put the two companies together, which finished as the Lundin Energy, which was their oil things was sold to Aker BP in Norway 2 years ago, and then that story was finished. But that was the beginning anyway.
Yeah. So this goes back to Adolf Lundin, and you two had colleagues, worked together, and became friends.
Yeah, from the end of '85.
Yeah. Talk about working with Mr. Adolf Lundin. What was that experience like?
We became very close friends and found out that we had been to the same school in the beginning, although he was a few years older than I was. So we became very good friends, and when he came into trouble, I helped him, and when I need some help, he helped me. So it was a very successful combination.
Yeah. Did you have to kind of manage the friendship with the business relationship as well? Were there times where you had to be careful not to mix the two?
No, we were like brothers. We can talk freely to each other. When we spoke to other guys, we have to watch up a little bit. But he was. We had a lot of fun calling people different names and so on, nicknames.
So that foundation really has brought about maybe we could call an institution of resource development based out of this country of Sweden. And it's almost, maybe it's naive for me to say this, maybe it's not, but it really put Sweden on the map for not only resource development, but also capital, global capital coming into these businesses backed by the Lundin and the work that you were doing. Were you at all determined to kind of change the tide of, Sweden being the go-to place not only for resources and commodities, but also for investment dollars coming into this market? Or was that something that just kind of organically kind of happened just because, two people, you and Mr. Lundin, who found yourselves in the same room?
He was very qualified for what he was doing, and I was more like a qualified amateur. And I had the number of shareholders, and I had my comments was quoted in Sweden, and he was quoted in Canada. Had a very few shareholders and had a hard time to raise capital for whatever he was doing, because he needed capital all the time until they earned their first money from the Buka field in Persian Gulf, and they find their first little oil there. Before that, he needed money all the time for different projects, and he got licenses in all problematic countries, and he committed to drilling and other things which cost a lot of money, but he had no money. So he had to fix it afterwards, after getting the license. And my shareholders in Sweden came into his life, because that was a more easy way to raise money than to try to do it in Canada.
Yeah. Is there kind of a localization, like there seems to be a Swedish cohort of investors that have been following that career that started with Adolf Lundin and now is into the third generation with his grandchildren. Obviously, people, I've been watching you in the last couple of days, and everybody seems to know who you are. You have quite the legacy. But talk about, were you able to kind of garner support in a new cohort of resource capital just based on being Swedish and inviting local Swedish population investors to come into resoce capital markets?
We had from the beginning, even before '85, when we made investments more on amateur basis. We had a lot of members in our Jordan Fund. Jordan Fund is actually a network of amateur and professional investors in Sweden, and also some around the world. So we had let's say 500 families as members, and they have friends, you know, and so we had a large group of people interested in the area of oil and mining even before our connection with Adolf Lundin. But when we had the combination between me and Adolf, it became a little bit more professional and also was built up. His at that time little company, IPC, had problems, as I said, getting financing, and that we actually didn't have. So this us together, and his knowledge and his connections between, I mean, like the president of Argentina and all these guys, Libya, it was a good combination, and he raised his 25, 30 shareholders in Canada to quickly like to 3,000, and the oil industry in Sweden then started, and the media in Sweden was very interested in this, because we were the only oil people in Sweden, and in Canada before he was one about among 1,000, and so we got the media, and we got everything we needed.
Yeah. So he definitely held a niche here in Sweden, being one of a few that's worked in the oil industry. That's very fascinating. Tell me more about the Jordan Fund and really how that came about. You said there's about 500 individual families that came in to start the fund. Did I catch that right?
Yeah.
So, talk about like bringing that.
First of all, the members of Jordan Fund is actually, first of all, members of our sport club. It's a part of the sport club, which I got interested in investments and in oil and these things we were doing. So about these 500 families, 400 families came from the ping pong world.
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating part of the story. Like when you said sports club, it's like it's ping pong.
That ping pong, you can say if you are very good. Otherwise, you have to say table tennis.
Well, I don't think I'm very good at ping pong, but I'm going to use the word anyways. But it's interesting. I mean, so did it just kind of start out as a conversation, like we already have this network within the sport club, we want to start this fund and invest in what we know and what's been good to us in the last previous years, and so you just leaned on that network on the basis of the sport?
Yeah, and maybe I should explain also the Jordan Fund name, because I was 1963. I visited the King of Jordan and asked him to be the president of honor of our club, just to have our club more in the media focus.
Wow.
Which succeeded very well. So King Hussein was our president of honors from 1963 when I saw him in Bosman Palace in Jordan.
Right. And what year was the Jordan Fund established?
It depends what you mean. We had always the group of people and the investments, but we formally put the name Jordan Fund on it when we got the king as the top guy.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. And today, as we talk, Jordan Fund capital is very highly sought after. And it seems like you are very... you have a high level of credentials that needs to be passed in order for the fund to allocate capital. Can you describe where that capital currently sits in just general terms, but really what does it take for you and the team to consider new investments?
Well, within the network, there are a number of people very interested in certain parts, and they are like a number of spies and you use all over the world, you know, and they report in when they see something which should be of interest for us, and then I have to check it, and some of the guys in the group, they are very good analysts, and they can just dig around the people in the respective companies and the companies' cash flow and everything. So see the companies are okay, and then you have to put. Then I put it into the as you say, international scenario. Like for instance, now. Copper, a year ago we saw the international electric industry needed much copper further on the road now, and it's not so much copper produced, so then it's very easy to make the equation that the good copper producers will have a good time further on. So that's the final decision I make.
You make the final decision.
Yeah, to recommend. And the Jordan Fund also is like our club has a share portfolio. That's somebody called the Jordan Fund, and we have the network, and somebody called that the Jordan Fund. And so it's like something together. And everybody asks, what in hell is the Jordan Fund? It's hard to tell.
Well, but it is sought after capital, and I'm sure you have conversations and get pitched new ideas constantly. And I sat next to you on the plane from Östersund back to Stockholm yesterday, and you spent the entire 50 minutes looking at stock prices, not only on your phone but also in the newspaper. You're the only person I've seen in years look at stock price changes in the newspaper anymore.
You must be aware of what's happening for the minute, not yesterday.
Yeah, well, and as you and I talk, I mean, the commodity markets, the metals and energy markets are moving rapidly based on what's the stimulus that's happened in China. That's just announced here in the last 24, 48 hours. Yeah. But you've seen a number of these cycles here. So as we sit here in the lovely city of Stockholm, your hometown, what are you noticing about this commodity cycle, given the kind of geopolitical backdrop and the volatility we're seeing throughout the world?
Yeah, you see, it's kind of saying, but you can discuss the oil, for instance, and you had OPEC and these guys, and Saudi Arabia, they had their budget based on $85 a barrel, and I know when the price goes too much low, the stock prices are low, but the Saudis don't like that, so they manage with their pals around to take the price up again by cutting the production or political things. So it's always bouncing back, and you have the same with the copper and silver industry now in the electric industry. When things went down now, like in the beginning of August and the beginning of September, a few days, we know that this must come back. Because it's going to happen something. Something happened, and that was China at this time. So it's always coming a reason to rebound, you know.
Yeah. Is today's commodity market similar or very different from previous cycles, commodity cycles that you've been through?
No, I think it's all coming back, you know, in waves.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Well, so you've always been a contrarian, I suppose, but as contrarians also need to know when to sell. What's your your approach to selling equities when you know the timing's right?
Yeah, it is what do you say? It's telling you from your back, your lower brain. And so, for instance, now in the late spring we had good oil prices, and then I saw the top of the cycle, so we sold almost all oil shares in the end of the spring, and we moved into the copper because of what I just said.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note that the Jordan Fund doesn't invest in just commodities. It sounds like you have some other investments.
Yeah. It's always to find out these waves. Right. And they have the perfect wave, like 2-3 years ago, when the pandemic, the virus thing took many things down. Like, for instance, the hotel industry, when they had the pandemic thing, the hotel almost went bust. No people came at all. So the shares, we have an example here is Scandic Hotels. The shares was on the 100 level, went down to 30. Mm-hmm. But I understood quickly, because of also this cheap Swedish currency, that the tourists anyway trying to make any tourism, they will probably come to Sweden. So you saw the shares of the Scandic Hotel dropping from 100 to 30, and the Swedish currency was cheap, and people around in Europe, they anyway wanted to make some kind of vacation, so they have to choose Sweden because of a low price of our currency. So when the Scandic was down at 30-35, we bought a lot, and now they are going better than before the pandemic. So the shares are up to 70.
It's a nice trade.
2 years out.
Yeah.
Yes. To analyze the situation, it's the same as if you go with copper or oil. You find some reason that it went down, and you will find a reason that it's coming back.
Yeah. But Nisse, I wanted to follow up with you because I think where we had left it is you have this incredible knack of finding capital that is, or finding equities that are undervalued, knowing that the value and the moves in those markets are to come. But with that, in kind of with the fund and your experience and kind of with what you've been able to build over the last 40, 50 years, you've also had to manage relationships with very important people throughout the world, heads of state.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah. Talk about, growing up here in Stockholm, and then as a child, and then, as you said, meeting King of Jordan, in the 60s. You've had other relationships with other heads of states that are very recognizable, as you were sharing with me. I'll let you share those stories if you'd like. But, just kind of taking that leap from, a simple child of this city to kind of a global member of the commodity market.
Yeah, it's you can say every day is a new day. You never know what happens. It's one connection gives the other connection, and suddenly you are within the game. And if you're joining the right persons and go to the right places, you are immediately classified as an expert of something which you maybe not are an expert in, but you learn during the time when you work with it, Yeah. So it's like a bumpy road history. Yeah. Anything can happen, but you have to watch up to take the chances coming.
Yeah. Can you kind of share what some of those bumps in your road were?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we had one thing when I was contacted by the president of Kyrgyzstan for coming and verify that some guys were the good people to establish the self-needed production of vegetables in Kyrgyzstan. But Kyrgyzstan is a part of western Himalaya, and it's mostly like 4, 5, 6, 7,000 meters high, but it's 15% land, growable land, and they wanted to set up like 100 large greenhouses with Korean technology for growing the vegetables year-round. And we just came in August, and they were planting the plants for tomatoes and cucumbers and these things for Christmas. That was in the start, and they wanted to have somebody to verify that the people hired for that was capable to manage what they are supposed to be doing. So the president of Kyrgyzstan, he asked me to come, and we flew into the capital Bishkek, and we were met as extra VIPs when the plane landed, and drove with a special escort to the palace. Palace area. The palace area consisted of the palace for the Kyrgyzstan president and for Vladimir Putin, as it was one of the old Soviet Union countries. And they gave us the palace of Vladimir Putin for 1 week, I and my wife, and we had everything from the red carpet to fantastic circumstances, and I was offered to stay in Vladimir Putin's bedroom, and actually in his bed. So there we were for a few days when we fulfilled our mission.
Right. Well, and I think we have to bring it back to ping pong. You actually laid your jersey out on the bed and took a photo. I don't know if Vladimir Putin's into ping pong.
No. This is actually not the ping pong part of the life. It's just I don't know how this came into the. By some reason, they had. They thought they had the knowledge as I should be the guy to verify this very, very big project.
Yeah. Is there the relationship with, heads of state, people who run sovereign countries? Is that how have you managed those relationships? Or maybe the better question is, what did you need to learn to do learn about yourself in order to have those relationships maintain approachability, but also knowing when to be involved and when not to be involved when it comes to business dealings?
That is some special thing you have to have in your head. Yeah, you must feel, be able to feel when to do what to do, especially what to say and what not to say, and listen to the people you're approaching, so you just try to play part of their game and transfer it step by step into your game.
Yeah. Was there a time where that became apparent to you, as like a certain moment in your career that maybe you overstepped your boundary or said something you shouldn't have and had to come back and learn that lesson?
I have been used to doing this since I was small, because when I was very young, I liked the football, I liked the table tennis, but I was not good enough, so I couldn't be in any club, Mm-hmm. So that's the reason I built my own club. And so finally we did that, and we said, later we shall be the Swedish champions. That's it. And actually in 1992 and 95 we were the Swedish champions. Mm-hmm. But we started with the worst players ever seen, but step by step. So by own work, and from that you got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And then it became the same with the oil company. in younger days, I saw the big guys running around. Say, I want to be a CEO on the stock market company. I had not a penny, you know. Shit, never mind. So finally, I created one oil company, and just showing it was not luck. I created another one also, so we had two. So we had two quoted companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm obviously not a ping pong expert, nor will I ever pretend to be. But you know, as we were talking here the last few minutes, I keep on thinking, like, you know, there's probably similarities between the sport of ping pong and the commodity market, and participating in commodity markets. It can be loud, it can be chaotic, you know, it can be fast. But the people that do it well appear to do it with incredible grace and speed, right?
You have to act like some kind of humble man also, you know.
A humble man. Yeah. So humility has to play a big part in both sport and in markets.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Concerning the ping pong part of it, after a while it happened, as you come from North America, that I was asked to be the psychiatrist of the United States national team for 3 world championships.
Oh.
So that I went into the worst guys ever had in the sport team, you know, and try to have them disciplined to make the result, you know.
Yeah. You know, we don't have a couple minutes left here, Nisse, but you know, you don't do too many of these interviews, and so I'm very, you know, humbled myself that you and I were able to sit down and do this. But I want to like kind of leave it like, you know, with, you know, what you like your own legacy. You know, if you think about that, the legacy of the Jordan Fund, the legacy of your career, you know, what do you want people to take away from your work here the last 50, 60 years? Just with and with ping pong as well, because I know this is very important.
Yeah, it's all, can we say, in the middle of everything is my work for world peace, with bringing juniors around the world as much as possible, making as many friends as possible, being invited to universities and school all over the place to have just a nicer world. That is the main purpose of everything, and from that all these other things can come out.
Yeah. Are you it seems like you're really fulfilled with the life and the career that you've had, you know, since starting this thing, and the relationships you've made and the friends you've brought along the way. You know, is this the career you kind of sought after? Like, if you went back here to Stockholm when you were a young man, like, is this the trajectory that you thought your life would take?
In the beginning, I just tried to find my way, but after a while, I saw how the world worked with very many bad happenings, and I saw the only thing to help a little bit is to put nice people together all over the world, and there you have to go to the young ones because they are not indoctrinated, you know, so they can start to making friends all over, and so this we can say ping pong sport is a very, very friendly sport. Everybody acting nicely to each other, and no cheating, and good behavings, and everything. So it's a very good platform to work from.
Well, you seem to be very much of a giving person to the youth. I mean, so, you know, I keep on thinking your relationship with the Lundin family, and obviously the third generation at the helm there within this specific sector in the mining and energy sector. You're giving a lot of time to a younger exploration team here at District Metals. Garrett and Hein, obviously. You actually even had one of your athletes here at this conference.
We have a few. But she was the best one. She's still playing on the team.
Okay, well, talk about kind of what you're seeing, like what you want to give to this next generation of young participants in both business and in sport.
Yeah, I can show you the back of this. Huh?
It says University LBD of Sweden.
We some part by fun, but also very serious. We have a little group of the better of the good table tennis players now, born 07, 06. We have formalized a little own university to educate these guys for bringing Sweden further on, is my meaning. And there we have two parts. It's the international economy is one, and the pragmatic philosophy is the other one, and to this make a combination. And the first thing they do is to watch the movie How to Succeed in Business. It's very learning, And then you the next one was like to introduce the manners of the Middle East, and then you watch the Lawrence of Arabia, and then you get the books from the history of the Middle East, the roots to the evil, translated into Swedish, and then you have to learn the First World War, which created that kind of economy. A Century of War is that a book. So we make these very serious, but also a little bit by fun,
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
He was an interesting story.
For the one who has never been in the Middle East, can see a little bit about the level of thinking, like King Faisal and these guys, how they performed and they were discussing.
He was the connection between, I guess East and West at that time, the Middle East and the West, right? And there were these misconceptions that the West had about the Middle East until Lawrence was able to provide the context.
Yeah, he made the context with different tribes there.
Yeah. And you kind of wonder what would come of the Middle East if it wasn't for Lawrence.
Yeah, it was it's a good start to introduce anyway.
Absolutely. All right. Nisse, thanks so much for your time. It's a great pleasure to meet you. It's one of the highlights of my trip here, and I'm glad we could do this. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I'm going to have to start following some ping pong, I think.
Welcome anytime.
Oh, thank you. All right, everybody. That's Nisse Sandberg from the Jordan Fund, and there's going to be more here from Stockholm, just so stay tuned. The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.